And with this, I take the privilege to introduce our beloved Registrar of the English and Foreign Language University, Professor K. Narasimha Rao sir. Professor Rao has been the Registrar in charge at the English and Foreign Language University, a central university, Hyderabad, since July 2021. He is a professor in the Department of Indian and World Literature in the School of Literary Studies. He has been the director of IQAC, Internal Quality Assurance Cell of the EFL University since 2020. He has brought to bear upon his current administrative positions the sure knowledge of universities' grievances for 2 decades, working in various capacities at the top level positions of the universities. Professor Rao is a conscientious teacher, an amenable researcher, and a university ranker in his undergraduation and post-graduation with a bright academic record. Professor Rao is widely published and liberally cited in post-colonial literature, English language teaching, Indian writing in English, and also Dalit literature with several papers published in Scopus indexed journals and Springer. He has authored 2 books in South African literature and edited 2 books in English language teaching, and a course writer for UGC E-Pathshala of Allahabad University, and developed course content, course material for KL University, Vijayawada. One of his textbooks is prescribed to the undergraduate students in Andhra Pradesh. His scholarly legacy in post-colonial studies and ELT is being continued by a good number of research students guided by him for PhD. Professor Rao delivered his resourceful talks in several universities and colleges. A few among them are SV University, Tirupati, Karnataka's State Women's University, Bijapur, JNTU Anantapur, KL University Vijayawada, and in several autonomous institutions and colleges spread across the undivided Andhra Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh too. With this, I humbly welcome our beloved Registrar Sir, Professor K. Narasimha Rao, sir, to deliver his talk. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. G. Kiran Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Literatures in English from the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad, from which I also hail. And today I stand before you as a teacher, giving you some inputs on English language teaching, through technology mediation in multilingual context. So this is purely a technical talk. And I am not going to make any concessions here. And if at all any technical teachers are there, please kindly excuse me. Probably it may sound something different because the practices and approaches and methods in the English classroom that we adopt while teaching English language are going to be discussed here. So I am very glad that I am also one among the teachers here, hailing from the English and Foreign Languages University, the fraternity of various universities which are here, from NIT Warangal and also from KL University. So the students of the English and Foreign Languages University spread across various academic institutions and spreading the real substance of English language teaching that was propagated by our university. A central university before it emerged as a central university. I think you know it was a Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, and which was also propounded as a Central Institute of English, which was meant only for the training of trainers, only for the teachers. Later on, it became a university, and now you see it as a university, a central university, without any affiliation, without any affiliated colleges. I am also a student there, learning language teaching, hailing from Andhra Pradesh, and then knocking the doors of EFL University, and then came to know that how to enter into English and Foreign Languages University, the method in which, and the kind of knowledge that you should have when you want to enter into a languages specialized university requires not just the knowledge of English, but the technicalities of teaching English. What we call the pedagogies now, called in a different, with a technical term. So now I am going to deliver this talk on English language teaching through technology mediation in the multilingual context. Before I just take a plunge into my talk, because this is purely a talk, and if at all anything is needed, you can ask me to write on the board. I am a conventional teacher, influenced by my teachers who taught me language and literature, and I hail from a state university and then came to a central university, and most of them, they never used any PowerPoint presentation. Even though I am a tech savvy person, I never take any paper or PowerPoint presentation to my classroom even today. I totally depend on this, on the capital that God gave me. So today my talk will be purely technical, and I would like to give you some insights on what is English language teaching, how it emerged, and based on the principle of Bronowski, the great educational philosopher, who said that teaching is nothing but the demonstration of what we already know. You know, I know. But I would like to give you a reminder of, or the demonstration of, what we all know in common, and take you from known to the unknown. Just if at all any unknown principles are there, you can record, you can register, and you can ask me, I will explain. So English language teaching is linked with various developments in various fields, such as linguistics, applied linguistics, psychology of learning, and education. How English language teaching came into being, and what is the history of English language teaching, we are going to know, along with the technology mediation and the multilingual context. So this English language teaching is related to these fields like what I said, psychology of learning and education, linguistics and applied linguistics, as inextricably as linguistics is with psychology. If you look at linguistics, the subject linguistics, it is inextricably linked with psychology. So the same is the phenomena with even English language teaching. When you look at the developments in English language teaching, you have to agree that it has an inextricable relation with linguistics, applied linguistics, psychology of learning and education. We might agree with, if you just look at English, if you take English language education, English language teaching, today it is also called English language education as a discipline, there arises the need to draw the distinction between two ideas. One is called history of ideas and history of practice. What is history of ideas and what is history of practice? So if you look at ELT as a discipline, these are the two ideas that emerge. That is what people say, what ought to be done in education and ELT over time, and what people have done in the classroom related and educational policy matters. There is a lot of difference. Whatever you preach whatever you teach in the classroom and whatever you promulgate out of the classroom, both these two are different. So the history of ideas differ from history of practice, that we have to agree. I am not just giving out this particular, I am not making this statement just like that. But I am going to base these ideas from three important texts. I think you can also just brush up your mind and see whether you have read this work called Louis Kelly's 21st Centuries of Language Teaching, 1969, and Howard, History of Language Teaching, 1984. And then we have Approaches and Methods to Language Teaching, Richards and Rogers, 1986. What these three texts gave was they gave a historical perspective of teaching ELT, of English language teaching. So first of all, we have to read these texts. So almost all of you become English language teachers without a technical knowledge, or what we call the technicalities of how English language teaching emerged. So these three texts are called the phenomenal texts, or what we call the texts that give you insight into English language teaching. One is Louis Kelly's 21st Centuries of Language Teaching, Howard's History of Language Teaching, and Richards and Rogers' Approaches and Methods to Language Teaching. And these three texts gave historical perspective. And another important text is there, Kelly and Titone, T-I-T-O-N-E, Teaching Foreign Languages. This came out in 1968, a phenomenal text. Because I am going to say that, why sir, you are referring to centuries back books. There is a great, Kelly made a statement. Whatever that is claimed as phenomenal and revolutionary in this century in language teaching is nothing but a renaming and rethinking of the earlier ideas and procedures. So whatever you are doing in language classroom, whatever you are teaching, whatever the methods and approaches that people are adopting in the classroom, these are nothing but renaming and rethinking of the earlier ideas and procedures. So if you want to get any methods and approaches which are now taught in the post-method condition, just like Appaswamy is referring to, Appadurai is referring to. So you get these ideas only from these texts, from these important texts. So Kelly and Titone in 21st Centuries of Language Teaching, he described a swing in the pendulum between two basic positions in ELT. So there are two basic positions in ELT. One is called form-focused teaching and meaning-focused teaching. Just like in literature, there are two important schools, Apollonian school and Dionysian school. So you can draw distinction when you have the knowledge. Scholarship is nothing but knowing the distinction between ideas, and it is nothing but taking a pursuit to the level of thinking to its logical conclusion. So if you have the distinction between, if you want to say that why literature differs, language teaching differs from literature teaching, you should have this idea. And many people say language through literature. And when you teach language through literature, you should have this idea. And there are two basic positions in ELT. One is called the form-focused teaching and meaning-focused teaching, which was propounded by Kelly and Titone in 21st Centuries of Language Teaching. And if you look at what is form-focused teaching, so form-focused teaching just emphasizes the teaching of rules, grammar, structures, development of vocabulary, and sounds of language. Simple, just like what Montague, Locke, and Hamilton preached. These people are called earliest exponents of form-focused teaching. And Montague is from France, Locke is from England, and Hamilton again from England. So all these people from 1533 down to 1697. All these people focused on how language can be taught in two different perspectives. So if you just look at meaning-focused teaching emphasizes language use, communication of fluency, and appropriacy of communication in all situations. So from this emerged various methodologies from meaning-focused teaching. And many of us who belong to the old tribe, we were taught in the form of, in the method called form-focused teaching. That is called, many of you call this grammar translation method. But it is a very effective method because it gave me the memory to remember books together. And I don't need any help of book because the recitation and the kind of imprint that I get in the mind is visual and photographic. And now, these two perspectives have had advocates down the ages. And you might agree with Kelly's argument, that's what I am telling. If you just look at Kelly's 25 Centuries of Language Teaching, he made a statement there. Whatever is claimed as revolutionary and phenomenal in this century is nothing but a renaming and rethinking of earlier ideas and procedures. The history of language teaching goes back to its earliest exponents, whom I told you already. Hamilton, Locke, and Montaigne. So, what are the methods that these people used? So, though these people they focused on form-focused teaching, though they adopted the form-focused teaching, therefore they emphasized more on communication, natural and direct learning methods. Language is taught directly. So, what is a direct method? Teaching language through language. That's it. So there is no help of bilingualism or any multilingual context. But it is an effective phenomena that was shown and experimented and proved by these people. And there is another important thing here. Just look at this H.H. Stern, Fundamental Concepts of Language Teaching. Another work I would like to refer to here. Because how this meaning-focused teaching acquired importance. And why meaning-focused teaching gained more methodologies, and now it has emerged into an eclectic method and then into a post-method condition. Now we are in post-method condition. And many of you know what is the difference between method and an approach, being language teachers. Approach is nothing but the plan to implement something, a method in the classroom. Method is called the program. While method is the program, approach is nothing but the plan with which you implement it in the classroom. It is an experimental phenomena. So now H.H. Stern, in Fundamental Concepts of Language Teaching, he made a distinction. He drew language teaching into distinctive periods. So when these distinctive periods are drawn, the period from 1880 to the First World War is the language reforms were at their height. Because that is the period at which language reforms actually came into existence. 1880 to the First World War, the language reforms were at their height. So I think many of you know IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet. Who established this one? No one knows. But we refer to Balasubramaniam. Paul Pache, a French linguist. Paul Pache, a French linguist, in 1880 for the first time established International Phonetic Alphabet. And Pache's International Phonetic Alphabet was based on Henry Sweet, another linguist, French linguist called, what is his phonetic alphabet called? Romic, R-O-M-I-C. Henry Sweet's Romic was the base for Paul Pache's French linguist's phenomenal outcome called IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet. And the period from First World War to the interwar years of the Second World War, that is up to 1940, you can say. So what is the development that we see in language? We see the basic tenets, the development of the basic tenets of vocabulary and graded readers for the learners. Many of you don't know this. And even we don't know when we came to English language teaching in EFLU, when our teachers taught, because they were just very much peripheral in nature, superficial while referring to these methods. That is the interwar years, because this is one of the instrumental factors in language teaching. For the first time, vocabulary has brought into language teaching scenario. And I think even if you can refer to the internet, there is a person called Harold Thorndike. Harold Thorndike, the word book, Teacher's Word Book, 1921. that is an instrumental text where you have words written and how these words can be used. It is an experimental text for the first time, which gave rise to how second language acquisition can be made easy in a classroom. There is a lot of difference between second language acquisition, second language learning. Second language acquisition I am talking about. I will talk about learning later. So what is the second language learning? Second language acquisition, for the first time, Thorndike, the Teacher's Word Book it is called, the Teacher's Word Book, which came out in 1921. And many of you know that English can be spoken with the help of only 850 words. Who brought this idea? Who brought out this idea? Ogden and Palmer. Ogden and Palmer's Basic English. I think you can get it on the internet also. Basic English, 1930. These are the methods, easy methods of teaching language. And many people don't know, they just go to the classroom, think about certain social context, take a handbook, explore the internet. It is not necessary. Methods have already been established. You have to evolve only approaches and how to implement them in the classroom. And Palmer's two important texts in 1921 and 1922. One is The Principles of Language Study, 1922, and Oral Teaching of Languages. Oral Method of Language Teaching, 1921. Oral Method of Language Teaching by Palmer, and the second text is Principles of Language Study by Palmer. These were very much instrumental because I told you that we see the basic tenets of the development of vocabulary and graded readers for the learners. What is a graded reader? Many of you go to the class and take diagnostic test. So this diagnostic test which you conduct in the classroom today is based on a graded material. So graded materials, when you go to the classroom, you have two kinds of materials in your hand, and you should have. One is called authentic material, and the second is called graded material. Authentic material, it is available everywhere, on the internet, in the newspaper, and even on WhatsApp, and now on the social media, everywhere. But graded readers, you have to evolve. Graded readers or graded material. That graded material, when you have a graded material, when you go to the classroom, that is the approach in which you are implementing a particular method. So, from the Second World War, the next important period, from the Second World War to early 70s, we see a paradigm shift. There was a shift, a paradigm shift, from philology to descriptive linguistics to transformative generative grammar. Three important shifts we can see in language. One is philology, the second is descriptive linguistics, and the third is transformative generative grammar. And this phenomenal shift or this paradigm shift can be seen in two important texts. Read this text. B.F. Skinner's Verbal Behavior. And the second important text, Noam Chomsky's Syntactic Structures. These two phenomenal texts for language teachers. Without the knowledge of these texts, you are not supposed to teach in the English language classroom with authenticity. Language teaching comes only with the knowledge of the teacher. Though you center the learner, you should be powerful. Read these texts, B.F. Skinner's Verbal Behavior and then Noam Chomsky's Syntactic Structures. And from the third period, that is the fourth period, let us go to the fourth period. From the early 70s to 80s, just 80s, touching 80s, it was a period of great happening. For the first time, English language teaching was inextricably linked with a particular subject called psychology. Psychology made its impact. And this impact is very much profound with the emergence of methodologies. For the first time, the term called method came into existence. Silent Method by Caleb Gatineau. Communicative Language Learning by Curran. Total Physical Response by James Asher. Suggestopedia, which is also called Desuggestopedia by Gorgi, Lazna. These are the 4 methods which came into existence. Methods. In spite of these methods, now there was a kind of unrest in the English language teaching because methods did not actually solve the problem of second language acquisition. So which resulted in a reaction against methodologies but focused more on learners for the first time. Methods have been pushed aside and learner has been centered for the first time in 80s. And the important thing here that we can notice is that why this break with the method? H.H. Stern, in Fundamental Concepts of Language Teaching, calls it a break with the method. Method should be broken and a new phenomena has to emerge. That new phenomena is nothing but approach. How to implement the teacher's plan in the classroom is called an approach. So, in spite of these methodologies, there was an emphasis on individualization of learning. That is very, very important, which focused more on the learner rather than on the method. So, for the first time, H.H. Stern called this a break with the method, where learner-centeredness was given more importance than teacher's performance. So, whatever teacher's performance was called inspiring in the classroom, that was decentered, and a new phenomenon has come into existence called the learner-centeredness. One of the important developments of this phenomena is called ESP, English for Specific Purposes. So how ESP came into existence is because of this. Learner-centeredness became a more important factor rather than teacher's performance. For the first time, ESP was established. And this ESP, English for Specific Purposes, there was emphasis on social context, need, and appropriacy of use. So ESP is based on 3 important concepts. One is called social context, need, and appropriacy of use of language. So these 3 became the seed bed, or what we call the basic ground for, a proper ground for developing what we call approaches in multilingual contexts. That's what I'm going to link with. So the first is social context, need, and appropriacy of use. These are the 3 that evolved ESP, English for Specific Purposes. So by this time, what happened? That the focus was shifted from, the focus was more on communicative ability as proposed by Del Hymes, a great linguist. Del Hymes was a linguist who spoke about communicative ability rather than grammatical competence. There is a lot of argument that went on in English language teaching between grammatical competence and communicative ability. And Del Hymes was a famous linguist who prompted and who supported communicative ability above grammatical competence. For the first time, this concept of communicative ability that was proposed by Del Hymes took precedence over grammatical competence. And at this point of time, CLT took off very richly from the work done at the Council of Europe. Council of Europe is a language association in England, and with the publication of Notional Syllabus in 1986, for the first time, CLT came into existence. Notional Syllabus. What is the principal agenda of the Notional Syllabus? Many of you, if you just brush up your idea, the basic functions of language has become the units of categorization in language syllabus. What are the functions of language? Speaking, listening, reading, writing, vocabulary, culture. All these have become an important ingredients in the units of categorization of language syllabus. So that's why we call CLT as the first method in which we can see that communicative ability was given precedence over grammatical competence. So now it is very much necessary that we have to refer to what is acquisition and learning, because I refer to second language acquisition and I said that I will deal with learning later on. So Stephen Krashen, how many of you know him? The paper is available on the internet. Stephen Krashen proposed monitor model, MONITOR, monitor model, in his paper called Second Language Acquisition and Second Language Learning. Without reading this, language teaching is not complete. Second Language Acquisition and Second Language Learning in 1981, where he drew the distinction between what is acquisition and what is learning. And acquisition, according to Stephen Krashen, and even it is accepted by the votaries of English language, it is an unconscious assimilation of the grammar of language. Grammar, not rules. The grammar of language. What is learning? Learning is a conscious imbibing of the language rules. Language rules, not grammar. Language rules. Because language rules means there is a kind of what we call constancy and a constant alertness on the part of the speaker. Because when I speak English language, though my trade, my bread is won through English language, my native language is not English. I feel comfortable when I speak Telugu only. But I have consciously imbibed the rules of English grammar. But there is no unconscious assimilation of the grammar of English language. So acquisition happened only later on. But learning happened first. Acquisition later. This is the basic idea that Stephen Krashen brought in his paper, in his revolutionary paper called Second Language Acquisition and Second Language Learning. And many of you go to the classroom and say, you are fed with the students. Sir, why these students, they don't listen to me? Stephen Krashen said, he brought out another idea, comprehensible input. That's why I asked the coordinators, the conveners of this conference several times. And even when I started this particular talk, I asked the technical teacher, sir, please take leave because I am going to give a technical talk. Comprehensible input. Because my learning taught me that what I speak before the audience, the target audience, at least 30% is to be understood by the audience. If at all it is totally, it goes out of their head, above their head, I am not reachable. So comprehensible input is very important idea that was floated by Stephen Krashen. What is this comprehensible input? This is a very important aspect of learning process. Please remember this. I keep this in quotations. Learning process, not the learning product. When I came here, the vice principal sir said, we are very much concerned about the outcome. Language teachers, they don't want to listen to this word called outcome. I don't want outcome. Product outcome that commodifies a person. Because I am a literature student and also a language teacher. And I don't want to listen to this outcome. And I said, because this is not my place to teach what is outcome and what is process. So then I said, okay sir, I said. Because this is totally commercial and we cannot treat a learner on the commercial basis. Always think about the learner with a process orientation. Every person, every learner has this incubation period. Never think about a learner coming with knowledge to the classroom. But what we want is comprehensible input. What is this comprehensible input? What the learner comes with, what the learner comes to the classroom and whatever is taught to him should be comprehensible. So that minimum knowledge should be there. So without that minimum knowledge, we cannot teach. And comprehensible input is the notion that was brought forth by Stephen Krashen. What does a learner bring to the classroom and how much of what is taught is actually comprehensible to the learner. What does the learner bring to the classroom? So, what does he bring from his past learning? And how much of what is taught is actually comprehensible to the learner? These two ideas are so much central to this comprehensible input. And when you look at this, the notion of comprehensible input focuses more on learning process rather than on learning product. That's why language teachers always defy and deny product. We don't want product. We want the process. Always learning process, and that's why this is the main characteristic of multilingual context today. That's what I'm going to link with. So, since this means that an incubation period or a gestation or a period of gestation is very much different from individual learners. One learner learns language fast while the other learner may not. That's why we call it gestation period or incubation period. Period of gestation or incubation period will be very much different from learner to learner. So it differs from individual learners. This also means that it is very difficult to consider a learner and to work efficiently with a predetermined syllabus. You cannot go to the language classroom and say, I am going to teach this today. Paragraph writing, I am going to teach this. You cannot. Because predetermination of syllabus will not suffice in English language classroom. That's why English classroom in the digital age has to change. And we are the advocates to change. We are the exponents to change as language teachers. So what works? Because process syllabus or procedural syllabus, these two should be there with you, not the predetermined syllabus. Process syllabus or procedural syllabus. It has to be evolved by the teacher, not by anyone else. Don't ask anyone, go to board of studies and say, sir, please give me syllabus, I will teach. No. Go for spiral teaching rather than linear teaching. Language teaching is nothing but spiral. You have to teach in a spiral manner. One idea is woven into another idea. Take him into another idea. Take him to another idea. So it should be spiral, not linear, just like in science. So what we are doing in the language teaching classroom is nothing but the linear method of teaching. So the stepwise teaching is not helpful in English language classroom in the digital age. And now I would like to just link this with the technology mediation. How this language learning process, English language learning and English language teaching can be linked to the technology mediation based on the inputs that I got from two texts. Castell's The Rise of Network Society, 2000, and Carroll H. Chappell, Computer Applications in Second Language Acquisition. Computer Applications in Second Language Acquisition that came out in 2011, and Castell's Rise of Network Society in 2000. These two are seminal texts. Whatever people write today as Scopus papers and publish a lot, ideas are taken from these two texts. So, the focus of instruction has broadened from the teaching of grammatical structures to the fostering of communicative ability. That we accept. But the more important thing here is negotiation of meaning has become important. And a new phenomena has come into existence that is called culture. Culture has received renewed interest, and teachers are very much unsure of how best to teach culture in the classroom. Because many of you write papers in English language teaching, but many of you miss an important ingredient of how our own culture, how the language taught, the Sanskrit or Telugu that was taught in the classroom when we were the regional learners, any regional learner here, any learner of regional language. So what are the techniques that were used by the teachers in regional language classroom while teaching regional language, or our, what we call, I don't want it to be called mother tongue, but it is called the native tongue. So it is, I am a native speaker of Telugu. So whenever we speak the native tongue, so we have certain ideas of how our teachers taught and how we were immediately inspired by these teachers. And just throw light on that and then think how these methods and approaches used by the teachers while teaching regional language in a classroom will help us develop. Because the important thing here is most of you write English language papers on English language teaching, but we lack that essential background of our own indigeneity. The indigeneity should be brought into the paper, because when you write a paper with English methodology or English or what we call the researchers from abroad, obviously those people are better rather than we write. That's why most of your papers end up in plagiarized, what we call these predatory journals. Most of you have very good ideas, but the only important thing that you miss is just imbibe your culture there and bring the techniques of your own learning into English language teaching methodology and approach. That will help even your publication work also. So that is most needed today. And what is in this context, when we look at this in this particular context, when language teaching has broadened from the teaching of grammatical competence, communicative ability, to the fostering of grammatical competence. So now there is an idea that is very much floated, that is what we call a significant innovation in language teaching has come into existence, that is called CAL, computer assisted language learning. So this CAL has taken phenomenal steps, computer assisted language learning, and this CAL is one of the important and new facets of language teaching, because if you look at this, language teaching, the integration of ICT into language teaching has become a new and potent challenge to language use. And Carroll A. Chappell, in his work called Computer Applications in Second Language Learning, Second Language Acquisition, he says that anyone concerned with language teaching and learning in the 21st century need to grasp the nature of the unique technology mediated tasks that learners should engage in for language acquisition. This is a famous statement made by Carroll A. Chappell. They need to grasp the nature of the unique technology mediated task, because without technology mediation and without digital literacy, a language teacher cannot perform in the classroom today. So this phenomena, this new change in language teaching that came through CAL, and now with the society becoming more mobile, networked, and wireless, a new phenomena has come into existence that is called the holy union between English language skill development, ICT, and task-based learning. This is a new union. This is a holy union between three important aspects. One is called English language skill development, ICT, information and communication technology, and task-based learning. These three have contributed. The union has contributed major areas of central importance today. What are these major areas? In this, it has brought into picture new literacies of digital education. One is virtualization of language teachers' professional development. Now we are all working in a virtual world. So the first change that happened is virtualization of language teachers' professional development. The second important phenomena that was brought forth by the holy union between English language skill development, ICT, and task-based learning is use of electronic portfolios, what you call handles, what we call social media handles, use of electronic portfolios. The third important thing that emerged was synchronous and asynchronous communication. Synchronous and asynchronous communication and technologies. And then we have Web 2.0 technologies. And then we have online digital platforms, and the next we have 3D virtual worlds. So these are the changes. Virtualization of language teachers' professional development. The second is use of electronic platforms. And the third, synchronous and asynchronous communication. Web 2.0 technologies, online discussion forums, and 3D virtual worlds. These are the various things that these are the various changes and reforms that were brought forth by the integration of the three: English language skill development, ICT, and task-based learning. And two of the advantages that we see that digital technologies have made possible in this modern age is that language learning and teaching, language teachers today can engage in the tasks across national boundaries. The second important thing is you can consider other cultural contexts. So please remember these two. Two of the advantages that digital education or digital literacies have brought forth a new reform in English language teaching is to engage in language teaching across national boundaries, and the second one is to consider other cultural contexts. So when you consider these other cultural contexts and when you engage in teaching across national boundaries, what are the new changes that you see in the English language classroom? Very important thing here, technology integration in language teaching has produced certain paradigm shifts. One, project based, concept based, experiential learning. Please remember this. Project based, concept based, and experiential learning, and constructivist and social constructivist thought. I am going to discuss these aspects. Project based, content based, and experiential learning, which you can see in experiential learning from John Dewey. I am going to refer to this. John Dewey, 1938. Constructivist and social constructivist thought from Vygotsky. Vygotsky, Mind in Society, 1979. So, technology integration also has moved from behavioral and structural and then to communicative aspect, and then the third phase is nothing but the integrative aspect of teaching language. So the first phenomena in technology, when you use technology you come across all these three, the three important phases in language teaching. Even in technology integration in language teaching, I'm talking about technology integration in language teaching has moved from structural and behavioral aspect to the communicative aspect, and the third phase is nothing but the integrative phase, which we call. Now we are in integrative phase. We have to integrate various approaches. So in the decades since the popularization of language laboratory, as a teacher in my early years in Velagapudi Ramakrishna Siddhartha Engineering College, way back in 2004, I was the language laboratory in charge. I used to take a lot of pride in being the in charge of language laboratory because that was a pride for the language teachers at the time, 2004, but now it's not. It is totally a technical job. But at the time, teacher is the main resource in language laboratory. And there were computers, multimedia computers, and the people at the time, students and learners are very much tech savvy. They can download something from the internet, and actually they thought that human intervention in English language classroom is not at all necessary. But I think you have to appreciate our tribe of teachers, because English language teaching today acquired this kind of importance because of our own tribe, of this tribe, which whom I represent, and I stand before you as a representative. Because we fought with technology, because we told that we revealed to the learners that without the intervention of the teacher, language learning is not possible, even though you have solid applications of intervention, computer intervention in the English language classroom, because teacher cannot be replaced. And that's why even today we look up to teachers when we have doubt, not to internet or not to Google. Now people have become, Google has become an international teacher, a global teacher. But a teacher should be a walking encyclopedia, especially in the subject concerned. And that comes only through reading. And that's what we have to show to the students, even though the most uh, state of the art technology is available for the learner. So, in the decades since the popularity of this English language laboratory, we saw the transition from mainframe computers to microcomputers, and then analog and digital technologies with the onset of World Wide Web. So, all these technologies have brought with them potent challenges to language use, and these have brought into existence. Castell calls this in this set against the background of this mobile, wireless, and network networked society. We see that all these challenges, all these potent challenges, have brought new forms of digital literacies. And a very important thing that we have to look at is John Dewey. John Dewey in 1938, he he was the person who proposed Experience and Education. That is a book. It came out in 1939 or 38. I don't remember the date properly. Probably 1938. Experience and Education, in which he argued he argued for a kind of knowledge. That's what we are going to teach the learners in English language classroom. So he argued that the learners need to connect with the experience in the real world, in opposition to the knowledge acquired or learned in the classroom, because experiential learning is the most important thing for a learner. This kind of experience is one of the important objectives that we need to keep in mind when we go to the classroom. Experiential learning, that this is the basis for constructivist and social constructivist thought. So the thing is here, what John Dewey said in Experience and Education 1938, he argued for a kind of knowledge that learners could connect with the experience in the real world, in opposition to the knowledge learned in the classroom in isolation. So whatever the knowledge that you acquire in isolation in the classroom is no parallel to the knowledge that is acquired with experience in the real world. So this became the ground, a proper ground for social constructivist thought, which we call the social determinants of language today in post-method condition. People today call it post-method condition. And what is a post-method condition? You bring the social context into the classroom. And when you bring the social determinants and social context in the classroom, it becomes experiential. That's what we get even from the authentic materials. And authentic materials should be processed in the form of graded material, and that is the responsibility of the language teacher. So there is a clear line of affiliation, because language teaching never broke up. There is a clear legacy that you can see right from 1938 down to 1980s and even 2000. So the first phase is nothing but, if you want to take Dewey's vision of theory of experiential learning 1939, has clear affiliation with the second important thinker, a psychologist called Bruner. Bruner's vision for what we call this learning as discovery. Learning as discovery in 1968, Bruner. And this has clear affiliation with another idea that came into existence in 1979, that is Vygotsky's social constructivist thought. Vygotsky. And this is called knowledge and agency. Knowledge and Agency, which was propounded in the text called Mind in Society, 1979. So these are the basis. Even when you use technology, the constructivist and social constructivist thought should be there at the background of a teacher's mind, and then only you can perform well and make language acquisition possible, unconscious assimilation of grammar of language, not the conscious imbibing of rules of language. Learning can take place anytime, but acquisition cannot. So now, in this context, this is a proper ground for the emergence of a new phenomena in language teaching called multilingual context. And in this context, India has emerged as a multilingual country. And it is propounded as a proper ground for teaching languages. Though many people say that Canada is the first multilingual country in the world, but by the time itself, because Westerners always attach a term, they give titles for themselves as a first. But India is the first multilingual country. And if you just look at this phenomena, I would just give two references from the Bible, because many people have some notions, misnomers in the mind that multilingual context until 1970, till Canada was recognized as a multilingual country, there were misnomers in the minds of language teachers and language learners. So for them, and as the teachers, because we are all scholars, let us have this historical outlook. There is a myth in the Bible called the Babel myth. Every one of us know. And it was referred to in Genesis chapter 11. And in Genesis chapter, there are two chapters, but most of you are not aware of the previous one. I will give you the remembrance. So most of us are very much concerned with the second myth called Babel myth, which is referred to in Genesis chapter 11. And in Genesis chapter 11, this marks as a symbol of confounded tongues. I keep it under quotations. Confounded means what we call confusing, confusion. So confounded tongues that led to the misunderstanding through the use of multiple languages. Most of us has a misnomer till 1970. So it marks a symbol of the confounded tongues that led to the misunderstanding resulting out of use of multiple languages. But there is no proper ground to believe that multilingualism is propounded by Bible as a curse or punishment. No. But it is only a misreading or misinterpretation that in order to make the Lord great, some people taught that don't use multiple languages, it should be only a singular language. A universal language has to be there. It is also a colonial methodology, a colonial project that was introduced even in India. When English language is introduced on 2nd February 1835 by Macaulay through the famous Macaulay's Minute. Because Babel myth was misused and abused. So if you just go to another example in the same Bible, there is a myth called, there is a reference, it is not a myth. There is a reference to sons of Japhet in Genesis chapter 10. Actually, this comes first and Babel myth comes later. Sons of Japhet, where the sons of Japhet were enlisted according to language and according to the country. So, if you just look at this, is the first humanities reference to multilingualism, if you want to recorded evidence, because many people refer only to the texts abroad, and since we are talking only about the Western education and English language education here, because if you want to ask me, the first reference to multilingualism is there in Rig Veda. And you know, there is a sloka called Guru Susrushya Vidya Pushkalena Dhanenava Adava Vidya Vidya Chaturdham Nopalabhyate. So there are three methods of acquiring education. One is called Guru Susrushya Vidya. Just serve the Guru and get education. Pushkalena Dhanenava. Pay money, get education. That is called the Rajasa way of getting education. Adava Vidya Vidya. There is a contention here. Adava Vidya Vidya means you speak your language, he speaks his language. That is, multiple languages have been referred to in Rig Veda for the first time, there itself. Adava Vidyaya Vidya Chaturdam Nopalabhyate. There is no fourth way of getting education. And fourth way of getting education here means learning. Because Vedas never talked about knowledge, it is only learning. So, if you look at this particular reference in Japhet, the sons of Japhet in languages, listing them according to languages and countries. So the reference is very much simple here, that it marks the first reference to humanity's intellectual project of expansion and legacy building. For the first time, Bible records that humanity has an intellectual project of expansion, and the second important thing is legacy building. These are the two projects through which humanity expanded throughout the world. So now I would like to refer to Tom MacArthur. I think you can also refer to this text. Tom MacArthur, Arthur, teaching English languages, not teaching English language. Teaching English languages, published in 1998. So he was the first Western scholar who unsubscribed himself to the monolithic concept of English language. He was the first person who said, there is no English language. There are Englishes, he said. No English, Englishes. So he was the first one who unsubscribed to the monolithic concept of English language. And he also said that the cultural aspect of English language can no longer be seen as a monolithic entity. But language teaching is diversified by the cultural shaping of the context, that processes towards Englishes rather than English. So now, because of the cultural contexting of language teaching, now we have Englishes. There is no cultural concept of English, cultural concept of Englishes. That's why even in English and foreign languages university, we have two departments: English literature, literatures from English. Literatures from English is more modern when compared to the canonical teaching that happens in English literature. Because we teach Englishes, not English. I am also of the same department with a different title, Indian and World Literatures. So Englishes is the more modern phenomena or more evolving phenomena today. And that's what Tom MacArthur testifies it in his book called Teaching English Languages. So in this context, with the orientation of new forms of digital literacies and the digital literacies coming into existence today in the English classroom, it is very much essential for the language teacher to teach an aspect called culture in the classroom. And what is this culture? So many people think that culture, because we always talk about 4 skills of language, LSRW. Apart from LSRW skills, please add this particular skill called culture. So culture should be taught in the classroom. And in addition to LSRW skills, teaching culture will will help the learners develop mindset and techniques, and it professes a kind of assimilation of cultures, which contests or which neutralizes the extreme use of Macaulay and Charles Grant. Charles Grant is another, most of you don't know, but most of you know only Macaulay. Macaulay's Minute, but there is a person called Charles Grant, 1792, 43 years before Macaulay. He was the first person who wanted to disground and break Sanskrit phenomena in India. And he wanted to break the religion, the backbone of religion in India in 1792. And based on the Charles Grant's idea, Macaulay brought this new idea called English language education in India. In 1792, 43 years before Macaulay, Charles Grant is the person who spoke about introduction of English education in India. And that's why when you teach English language, take the help of Indian culture also. And now there is no place for English language. It is called Englishes. That's what I'm telling you. And that's why I also ask you to publish papers with the help of Indian approaches when you publish, not the Western approaches. They devise their own approaches, but let us evolve our own. That is essential in the multilingual context. And even if you want to publish a paper in one of the most celebrated journals called Language has a high impact factor of 32 in language. It is called the highest H index, mostly cited journal. And there, if you introduce one of the concepts, Sanskritized concepts of how English language can be taught in the classroom through using a Sanskritized method, Indian method, your paper will be published. Because no one knows how the approaches of a Sanskrit teacher are or can be implemented in the classroom. That's what you have to evolve. And in the multilingual context, these people can develop insights and techniques, and at the same time, the learners can adopt their use to English and learn about the important aspects of other culture. Let us redefine in this context how English language teaching can be redefined in the multilingual context. This leads us to an important aspect of social contexting of language teaching, opening a new vistas for the language teacher. So, language should be placed in a social context. The social determinants are more important. And, my dear teachers, while preparing a lesson plan, please reflect on the following things. Whether the objectives of the syllabus have been clearly spelled out or not. That is first important thing that you have to reflect on. When you devise a particular graded material, when you devise a particular language syllabus for your own classroom, just think on whether the objectives of the language syllabus have been clearly spelled out, whether the lesson plan includes problem solving skills, whether the lesson plan reflects cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. So these three aspects are very, very important in the multilingual context. Thus, learning process is the main characteristic of multilingual society, multilingual classroom. Learning process. That's why never talk about learning product, learning process. Even today, even after Stephen Krashen wrote his paper in 1981, that carries a lot of weight even now, because that can be linked to the multilingual context. Learning process is the main characteristic of multilingual context. This, there arises a question, because now I would like to ask a question. Is there a textbook in the English classroom in the multilingual context? According to me, there is no text. Don't carry a text, because you have the help of digital technologies today. And use one of the platforms, online discussion forums. You have 3D virtual worlds. You have online use of electronic portfolios and synchronous and asynchronous communication. All these are at the disposal of the teacher. Please have the digital literacy. And digital literacies and are the new literacies that enable the teacher in multilingual context. So my simple idea today is where are the activities that you can draw from? The activities that you evolve in the classroom should emerge from the social context only. So take any social context and the social determinants. Say, for example, any politics, any political concept, any air crash, something which is very much occupying the minds of the readers at that instant moment is very, very important. So you can make the learners connect very easily to the experience, what John Dewey said, experience in learning, experiential theory of learning. So experiential learning in reality, in the real world is more important. So that's what I would like to tell you. So the activities should emerge, should churn out of what we call authentic materials that take you towards systematic, targeted, and graded activities. Just grade your activities. Don't go to the class without a handout in your hand. There should be a handout which should be devised by you, not by another person, not by the board of studies, not by the teachers. You should have your own handout, and you should have a clear idea about your learners. That's very, very important. And take a diagnostic test before you teach, because now you can easily map them how many students, how many learners are there who are above the level that you expected, how many are below, how many are mediocre. So that's very, very important. So graded learners, graded and targeted material should be there in your hand. So with this, I would like to just conclude that the dynamics of English language teaching in the current context, in the current multilingual context, should be redefined. And it is in your hands that please redefine them. The methods and approaches gain the momentum of praxis. So practice is more important. The praxis is more important. Theory is not at all important. Theory should be there in your mind. Read, come to know the methods and approaches, and go to the classroom with the momentum that you gain the momentum from the theory, and give that momentum of praxis in the English language classroom. That's what I would like to give the message today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We need to actually go back to the recording and and see. You have. We need to go through the expert talk again, because in one expert talk, we covered so many things. So many things were shared, and it's really insightful, and with good examples and all. You made a very impactful expert talk. Now I would like you to come on to the dais again. Now, on behalf of all the participants, I extend our sincerest gratitude to our distinguished speaker for sharing his invaluable insights with us today. His talk on the multifaceted world of language education was nothing short of captivating and immensely informative. He masterfully navigated us through the history of language, shedding light on its evolution and the various methods of language teaching that shaped the field. His clear explanation simplified even the most complex concepts, making them accessible to everyone. The distinctions he drew between second language acquisition and second language learning were particularly insightful, proving a clearer understanding of these fundamental processes. And we were also privileged to gain a deeper appreciation for the development of linguistics and its profound impact on how we approach language education. Now, his ability to distill complex ideas and make them understandable was truly remarkable. Beyond the theoretical, his practical guidance was invaluable. He generously suggested good books on those areas, providing us with resources to continue our learning journey, as he said. Furthermore, his forward thinking perspective on what we as language educators can do in this digital age resonated deeply. And he didn't just speak in generalities, he provided so many concrete examples, drawing from frequently quoting famous people in the field, which truly enriched his uh, expert talk. One of the most profound takeaways for, I'm sure, many of us, especially the language teachers in the audience, was his emphasis for language teachers. It's the process, not the product. This shift is perspective is in perspective is a powerful reminder of our core mission. Now, his assertion that English teaching in the digital age had to be spiral teaching, not linear, offered a crucial paradigm shift, encouraging us to adapt our methodologies to contemporary needs. Again, his emphasis on the importance of culture while writing language teaching papers also struck a chord, reminding us of the broader context within which language exists and is taught. He truly inspired the teachers as well as the researchers among us to think critically and innovatively. He rightfully highlighted that digital technology help is required, very much emphasizing the crucial role of technology in modern language education. His concept of ICT, English language skill development, and task based learning as a holy union was a particularly compelling vision for integrated and effective teaching. We also appreciate uh, his views on language teaching across national boundaries and the growing significance of project-based learning. As he said, in this like because of technology, we can go beyond boundaries. Now, we are delighted also in this context. We are delighted to announce that this session had a wonderful reach with here, of course, we have around 20 offline participants, and but apart from that, 40 participants who were attending online, and we are thrilled that this session was also streaming live on YouTube, allowing an even wider audience to benefit from his expertise. Sir, your passion, knowledge, and dedication to language education are truly inspiring. You have provided us with a wealth of information, new perspectives, and renewed enthusiasm for our work. We leave this talk and feeling enriched, empowered, and eager to apply the valuable lessons learned. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you so much. Uh, from the audience, if any one of you have some questions for sir or you want to discuss anything or share your views, you are welcome. Yeah. So one more.
Survey of all my friends in the organization. I thank you for this wonderful insight and throwing a light upon all different concepts. And it really inspired me. There's 2 points. One is Babilov syndrome you talked about. You went into the root and taught us how this multi languages developed. And second thing, one should keep it in mind to take their culture in the classroom. That was really wonderful, sir. And we should publish papers based on our culture, I mean, based on our subject, based on this old roots, like we have to go into the Sanskrit and how the language was taught. We should take that insight and give the lecture, take those methods in the class and design the method, then take the approaches. That was a really wonderful insight, sir. And third thing, before designing a syllabus, we should keep three things in mind. And one thing which has inspired me is that um, whether the lesson impact have a problem solving skills. One should keep in mind the lesson should be designed based on the problem solving skill that is really required in our day to day day to day life. So that's a wonderful insight. And one should carry their handouts. Yeah, we always carry our handouts, and giving this information is really wonderful. This thing. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir. It was an informative session. I didn't know that much information can be put into bite-sized and then given that way. It was really great. So I have one question, sir. You mentioned culture as a skill. Uh, I would want to know how we can look at culture as a skill in a language classroom.
Just refer to David Crystal's Encyclopedia of English Language. And it's not my idea, but whenever I go to the classroom, I have this cultural background in the mind. Because one of my teachers, when I was when I was in 7th class, he we had his whenever his name is Rama Sharma, he used to teach Telugu, and we are really fascinated. We waited when sir comes to the class and when he engages, and he's a priest in a temple, and uh, he very seldom he finds time to come to the class. So whenever he comes into the class, he used to ask us to recite a sloka, Anantanama Dhyayaya Sarvakara Vidhayane Samasta Mantra Vajjaya Visvaikapatiye Namaha. We don't know the meaning of it. But Sir told us because we are fascinated by, we are so much, he's a fascinating teacher, so inspiring. And he always told stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata, give very good ethical lessons. And just because we have that fascination for him, we learn this, though it is very difficult. So later on, we came to know that this is imparting of culture. Anantanama Dhyaya. This is a prayer to God. This is a prayer to Almighty. Whatever the name in this world is yours. Whatever the names are there in this world, it is yours. Some Anantanama Dhyaya Sarvakara Vidhayane. That is nothing but whatever the shape that is found in this world is yours, is you. Samasta mantra vajjaya. Whatever the language that is spoken in this world is nothing but you. Sounds, whatever the sounds that people make. Anantanama dhyayaya sarvakara vidhayane samasta mantra vajjaya visvaika patiye nama. O Lord, the husband of this universe, to you I fold my hands before you. We don't know this. And this is a sloka from Rigveda. Later on we came to know. And that culture was imparted in us. Later on we came to know that the meaning of it. So culture is always imparted unconsciously. That's why when you prepare a handout, always base don't take the conversations from the English context. From the Indian context, you take. For example, if you take an example when you travel in a second class train compartment, so there will be different kinds of conversations, different kinds of episodes you come across. So the material should be based on those episodes that you come across in real life. That's what even John Dewey in his experiential theory says, that learners should connect with experience as learning. So his learning should be based on experience. Culture comes from our own contact with the society. And those contact, whatever the kind of experience that you had in your culture, that should be brought into the classroom. And that should be taught. And this is what even because already we told it, we envisaged this principle centuries back. But now English people, Western people came and they are devising these ideas, they're writing in English language and teaching them again to us as though they are the new concepts. These are not new concepts. These are all there in our culture. And whenever a Sanskrit teacher comes into the classroom, he brings along with him, whenever a Telugu teacher comes into the classroom, he brings along with him his own culture. That's why we are so much connected. Why learners are not connected to the English teacher? Because we think we bring English culture to the classroom, not the Indian culture. So take some experiences from your own life, from from uh, from the surroundings, from the ecology, and then from your own milieu, and just weave them into your graded material, then teach. It will provide excellent uh, material for you in the classroom. That will be a very good graded activity in the classroom.
Good morning, sir. Sir, the session was very insightful session, sir. I am from St. Joseph Degree and PG College, Hyderabad. My name is Fauzia. And one point I could take from this the 5 day seminar is teacher is irreplaceable. Because when we are teaching English language, the people are telling in even university also nowadays only we are going to decrease the credits and all. But wherever we are teaching either English or whatever, AI is not going to replace us. So even though this seminar is integrated with ICT tools, so you have stressed upon teacher is irreplaceable with all like ICT tools. They're only facilitators, not the main aspects. Thank you so much, sir, for that point. And lot many things I could recall because I'm also from FLU. I'm the student of FLU. So whatever you taught, that was a recapitulation to us, and I recapitulated a lot. Thank you so much. Very insightful session, sir. Thank you, organizers, for giving this opportunity.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Sureka. I am from JVIT. I am working as an assistant professor in JVIT Engineering College. Whatever you spoke in this session, very inspiring, motivational session, sir. And whenever we go to the classroom, we have to take our own handout. That is a very important. I inspired on that, and also. Instant moments, instant any whichever situation in the classroom we have to teach and we have to give example. That is a very important. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm very much happy to. It's an opportunity for me to attend this 5 day FDP. So coming to the session was very informative, and what I have learned is usually we use LSRW in the class, but taking culture to the classroom, this is the first time I have heard about, and I have learned that now we have, as you have given an example, that will help us in teaching the classroom. And one more question I have, sir, like how to handle multi lingual points or approached in the classroom, like language, like culture and language, like skills we use it, but taking this multi language to the classroom, like still more. I just want 1 or 2 points. Thank you, sir.
So as we accept that multilingualism, there are all the languages are equal, as you know. So prepare. The first thing is that's why I evinced on the idea that culture should be taken to the classroom. So your target language is one thing, and you are going to teach your target language through your own native language, whatever. For example, in Canada, for the first time, French was taught. English is actually the English is spoken widely in Canada, but French, there were several migrants from France, and for them, English has to be taught. That was the concept. That's why in 1970, when Canada declared itself a multilingual country, what they adopted was they wanted to teach English to French students. They took examples from France, not from Canada or from England or from America. So they placed language in the French context, and even the characters are also French names only, not English names like what we call Edward or Harold. So they took the French names, and what they what they made was they adapted the learners to the environment so that the cultural background becomes a very important factor, or the cultural contexting of the language is more important for learning the language. So in multilingual context, always the target language, for example, in our country, our target language is English. So if the learner comes from Telugu background, take some Telugu examples, and it is called English language development in rural setting. This is a different idea. So you develop some graded material so that language learning becomes more habitable for him, and it will be and they can learn their use to English, adapt their use to English, and learn about the important aspects of other culture. So when you give certain examples from the native examples, and you talk about the other culture, it will be easy, rather than from English to English it will be very difficult. That's what multilingual context today actually give they lay down this primary objective for the language teacher. Language teacher should always focus on what is target language, but target language should be taught only from the regional examples and instances that you draw, so that it will become learner can easily adapt himself. So that kind of material we have to develop, because the syllabus designers or the content developers cannot develop. It should be totally the responsibility of the teacher in the classroom. That's why I insisted that the graded activities that you evolve in the classroom are more important rather than the syllabus developed by experts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your further explanation of this very new concept for most of us. Any more questions we have from the audience? Okay. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Satya, a scholar from KL University. It was a very excellent concept, sir. It's thrown back to me, so sitting in the IFLU lecture halls. Actually, it's a new concept of LSRW with culture. When you were discussing about that concept, I thought that you'll say LSRW with comprehension. When we were there in IFLU, Professor Rajagopal said, don't think that only LSRW. LSRW with comprehension is also one of the important skills are told by the time. It was excellent session, sir. Sir, I have a little doubt that in this present generation, how far technology intervention to develop language skills can be helpful to the teachers. And one more point, you said that in 2004, when you worked in some other college in Andhra, as I worked as a lab in charge, what it may be. Even when I joined in the engineering sector, also same. I was given a lab in charge position. There are systems are there, students are coming. Senior faculty suggest that students will come and sit. Just you see that, even though students are sitting, technology intervention with the teacher involvement is necessary. I understood that concept also. It's excellent, sir. And you suggested that paper publication with Sanskrit, some other. Are there any papers? Can we use our Vedas? You said that Vedas are helpful to teach knowledge. If are there any papers? If you suggest, will use in my paper publications. Thank you, sir.
You are from IFLU? Yes. Sit down. So you know the caption of the university? Sarvam Shabdena Bhashate. Sit down. Where was it from? Bhatrahari's Vakyapadiya. It is a linguistic concept. Nashosti prachayo loke ya shabdanu gamadrate anuvidam idam gnanam sarvam shabdena bhashate. So many of us don't know. So as a teacher of English literature, I teach Jacques Derrida in the classroom. Jacques Derrida said this: language is slippery. Language is slippery. So when you express an idea in language, always it gives a different, it creates a different kind of notion. It distorts the idea rather than constructs the idea. Yeah. And Jacques Derrida is called the famous philosopher, French philosopher of all times. But many few people know that his concept is wrong. Language is not slippery. Because your mind is slippery, you accepted that. Because your times are slippery, you accepted that. Because after the Second World War, times have become fragmented. Times have become, the entire ideas have become, people have become disillusioned, disenfranchised, They wanted that everything can be destroyed rather than created. But there is no destruction in Indian thinking. What we call, what I came from the background that I came from. Bhatrihari said, Nashosti prachayo loke ya shabdanu gamadrate. That is, every idea in this world is expressive. You can express it in language. Language is not slippery, language is constructive. Anuvidam idam gnanam sarvam shabdena bhas. This is what you have to know, and words illumine the world, he said. And without words, there is no world, he said. And Ferdinand de Saussure, he used this idea and said, linguistic determination. Linguistic determination. For example, if I say this is a bottle, you accept it. If I say this is a chuck, you won't. Because this is called language determinacy. If at all there is no word called pony, because the young horse is called pony. So there are two words, horse, which is the big one, pony is called, yes, a younger one. So if at all there is no pony, what do you call it? You call it horse only. Because your entire ideas are determined by words, according to Ferdinand de Saussure. And Saussure's idea was broken by Jacques Derrida. And where all these people got these ideas, they got from the Oriental knowledge, from us, from Bhatrihari's Vakyapadiya. So this is what you have to, you just go to our Indian texts, read them, you think that the later on evolved ideas are all renaming and rethinking of earlier ideas and procedures. That's what I told you in my talk. So today, whatever the post-method condition, whatever the methods, approaches that these people are talking, even the Westerners are referring to their ancestors only. And we are not referring, we are referring to Westerners. So paper should be written in that manner. Go back to the text, read them, develop the ideas, apply them to the Western ideas. You get excellent papers. And people don't know where this person has come from, where these ideas came from. Because it is your knowledge which was unexplored. And Max Muller took away Bhagavad Gita. Max Muller took away Vedas. He published them. And in Germany, people speak Sanskrit. We don't know about Sanskrit. This is what we have to bring.
Thank you so much, sir.